Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Today we're discussing marriage to the Lwa. Hello, everyone. Today we're discussing marriage to the Lwa. So, first and foremost, welcome. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. Share, share. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. Hello, everyone. Today we're discussing marriage to the Lwa. If you enjoy these lives, go ahead and contribute like many others already have at Cash App, cash symbol Hector Salva, and or via PayPal help at mysticalwork.com. Hello, everyone. Today we're discussing the Lwa marriages. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. I think I'm going to do some type of raffle or something for those people who really share all our stuff. And if you're one of our frequent sharers, so, because, that's how we should help each other. Okay, so today we're discussing marriage to the Lwa, also known as Mariaj Lwa. Hi, Aida. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Also known as Mariaj Lwa, Casamiento de Lwa, Casarse con el Lwa, Maryaj Mistik, Mystic Marriage. So I hope everyone is doing well here. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. And as we already said, if you'd like to make a donation, as many others have, you can do so via Cash App or PayPal, cash symbol Hector Salva, or PayPal help at mysticalwork.com. Today we're discussing Lwa marriage. It's a very important ceremony. It's a very important ritual. It's something that comes up a lot. It's something that's been coming up more and more frequently as of recently that I've noticed. And not just amongst my own people, but even amongst people, other Hungans and Mambos that I've spoken to, other priests and priestesses, have seen an increase in it going on and an increase in requests from the Lwa. So, what does the marriage of the Lwa look like? What does it mean? What's its importance? What's its significance? Why would someone do it? What does it entail? What does it, all of that? That's part of what we're going to try to get into and cover a lot of these topics today in this live. Buenas, amiga. Hello, Donald. Hope you're doing well. Many blessings. And so today in this live, we're going to go ahead and get into all these topics as far as marriage. So, not that long ago, did a marriage for someone who they were uh, agreed to have married the Lwa, but they hadn't married the Lwa and fulfilled their agreement for a number of years. As a result, that Lwa was causing them all types of blockages and problems, including car accidents, jail, um, okay, car accidents, jail, situations with relationships suddenly being put out of places. But this was like very much obvious to this person as they had made that agreement to get into the marriage, never really fulfilled it. So, marriage to the Lwa can come to you from a number of situations. One of the ways that the Lwa can ask you to get married is when they're mounted in someone during a ceremony or doing a private consultation in which the Lwa are there and present, mounted on someone, which means to take over or possess their body. In this case, the Lwa can go ahead right there and really just say, hey, like, do you want to get married or ask for marriage? And some spirits that don't speak so much in this language, meaning using words as we do, but communicate through other means, have other ways of communicating via the symbolic communication of the Lwas to say that they want or that they're asking for marriage or the mystic marriage to be married to that person. For us, what we often say, it's always preferable to get married to the Lwa when the Lwa asks you to marry it. However, you can ask the Lwa to marry that Lwa. You can ask the Lwa to get married to the Lwa. But it's preferable if the Lwa has asked you to marry it. Hi, John. Has asked you to marry it. Because that signifies and that says that that Lwa is showing that he really, really wants to be with you, or she really wants to be with you, but also that it's something that you really need. So the tool, the marriage, can be used in many different ways, but it can also be used as a tool in the spiritual practices. So a Lwa can come to you via a horse and be like, hey, basically, I want to get married with you, or hey, will you marry me? That's number one. Number two, another way that a Lwa can communicate to you that it wants to get married to you is it can come to you in dreams, coming to you in the realm of dreams, saying like, hey, I want to get married to you, basically let's get married. And they can come to you actually just saying that to you, or they can come to you in a way that is basically sexual, or them trying to have relations to you or reaching towards you in that manner, in order, which all signifies that desire of that mystery, that misterio, that Lwa, to marry you. Now, it's very important to understand that not all Lwa marry humans. This is very important, because if not all Lwa are marrying Lwa, not all Lwa marry people. Some Lwa do not marry at all. Some Lwa get engaged but do not marry. Some Lwa will not marry people. Okay? I've seen throughout time where I've said, that's interesting, in various places where people have, come to me or claimed that they were married to various Lwa, or various Lwa that don't marry people. They've had ceremonies to marry those Lwa. And I just say, that's really interesting. That is really different. That is really unique. The fact is, certain Lwa don't marry people. Not every Lwa gets married to people. Okay? No, Jason. You find whereas in Haitian Vodou, they is the place where there's a lot of people that do marriage, but in 21 divisions, people do marriages to the Lwa, Casamiento Lwa, because I've seen it. And, but not all Lwa get married. Hello, Goddess Mother. Not all Lwa get married. And in the 21 divisions, you have to see that there's various lines of practice. So there are certain lines that have various aspects to them. So not all Lwa get married. That's, however, the important point. However, some are very frequent in getting married, more so than others. And some Lwa need balances, meaning if you marry certain Lwa, sometimes you have to marry certain other Lwa to balance them out. So the Lwa can come to you in these various ways to ask you for marriage. Now, a frequent question that I get, and something that we try to instruct people, is that you don't necessarily have to say yes. You shouldn't make agreements that you're not certain that you can fulfill or that you will fulfill. You shouldn't automatically say yes. We've met and we know a number of people that gotten themselves quite into some trouble, into some hot water, from being at ceremonies or rituals where maybe they didn't always know what was going on, or sometimes they did but didn't have proper instruction, people didn't look out for them or whatever, where they ended up making agreements to marry Lwa, either knowingly or unknowingly. In the spiritual world, Just like in the physical world, you can sign a contract and not know what you're signing. You can get yourself into agreements or involved in agreements and not knowing everything that that agreement entails or what that means. Unfortunately, just like in the physical world, if you sign a contract which you don't, you're not aware of all of what it entails, you're still held responsible and liable for that. It's just the way that these things work. And we've met a number of people, we know a number of people. We recently, not that long ago, did a marriage for someone, but that's exactly what happened to him, is that he accidentally got himself involved in a contract to marry a spirit without at that time really knowing even what that really meant. Hi Mishu, hope you're doing well. Right? Welcome Mishu, hope you're doing well. So you can get yourself involved in agreements you don't even know what you're agreeing. So this is why it's important that when you go to a ceremony, when you go to these rituals, either A, you like the people who you know who you're going with, you know they got your back, you know that they're gonna, lead you well, or B, you don't say nothing or do nothing that ends up putting your foot in your mouth, putting, stabbing yourself in the foot. You don't necessarily need to say yes when a Lwa asks you to marry. You don't necessarily need to say no. However, if in your dream, if the Lwa asks you to get married in your dream, and you say yes in the dream, or you participate in the sexual activities that the Lwa is doing with you in the dream, that usually signifies a yes. What it's saying to you is it's saying to you on a deeper level that it's something that you need. Okay, you can say no still, but it's something that you need. A lot of times when a Lwa comes to you to ask for marriage, it's because it's something that you need. It's something that the only way for that Lwa to make that connection with you or to be able to help you in a certain way is to be able to have that form of connection with you, where it's then able to help you or work with you or balance your stuff out for you in some way, shape, or form. Oh, I'm glad you're doing awesome, right? Yeah, this is definitely what we're doing. Bonsoir, Mario, bonsoir. So when when that happens in your dream, that's what happens in that process, what that's saying to you is that that's something actually that you need in your life, because that Lwa is the reason for, or it's that force, that Lwa's force that you need in order to correct an imbalance, to fix something that's going on for you. And usually these things are things that are larger in nature. Usually they're not like your little tiny problems. They're not like this little job or this little thing. It's problems that are larger in nature, which create an imbalance or something severe in your life, right? Which is a type of spiritual illness, which with that marriage in place, that Lwa can now start to flow and create flow in that area of your life. Like I said, these are the ways that the Lwa can ask you for marriage, although the Lwa can communicate in other ways to tell you that they're wanting marriage. You don't necessarily need to say yes. You don't necessarily need to say no. However, if those certain other things come up, your spirit recognizes that that's what you need, right? What we usually suggest that people say at that point when you get that question is like that you need some time. You need some time to think, because it is something that you're going to have to take into account. Because when you get married to that Lwa, depending on where you go, so it depends on who does the marriage for you, right? You're going to have to do a certain ritual for that Lwa, where you're going to have to sleep alone, be alone, have some space alone, every so often. That might be a few times a month. That might be once a month. It depends on where you go and how they set up that contract and with you and your lwa. Different places, depending on the lineage, set things up differently. It's not that one is right. It's not that the other is wrong. It's that people work differently. There's many ways to skin a cat. Okay. Bonsoir, Chaz. Hope you're doing well. Welcome, welcome. So it's not that one place is right. It's not that the other place is wrong. It's that it does it differently. Okay. When a marriage is done to a lwa, it can be done where there's a huge public ceremony afterwards, or it can be done where there's a very private, small ceremony. It's a private, small marriage, a private ritual. And most often in the 21 divisions, the second is more common than the first, meaning that the ritual is held small, private, few individuals, and it might only consist of 4 people, 5 people at max. Whereas some places, again, it depends on where you're at, right? That they're gonna do things in a way that there's a huge public celebration afterwards. However, even in those places, you can have a marriage done on a more private, smaller, more intimate basis. When you have a marriage to a lwa, okay, that entails that every month you're going to have certain obligations on your end to your lwa. It also means that you're not going to be able to be with your physical, living, breathing partner, right? Your human spouse. And that's something that your human spouse is going to have to comprehend. Now, what some people don't understand with this is that sometimes if you need to marry the lwa itself will cause you problems with relationships, so you can't have anyone else until you marry the lwa. The lwa needs to know that it comes first. Hi, Ashley. The lwa needs to know that it comes first. And it won't allow you to have a relationship that's in peace. In other cases, when someone needs to marry the lwa, it will cause relationship issues with the relationship that is there, right? And will cause actually one party or the other to like have this sudden disgust towards the other. Not a very hate, but a disgust, almost like a ugh, get away from me type of thing, right? Especially when that time is coming that it's time for that person to serve, right? They might just feel disgusted at the other person may feel disgusted at them. They might get into arguments, into fights for no reason, for stupid little tonterías, for estupideces, for little things. They get into fights, into problems, just because it's that lwa who's pushing things around, so the people don't want to be around each other. Okay? So, yeah. Somebody said, pretty sure Fredo proposed in a dream, but family said nothing when I explained. Oh, well, yeah, that's something that they're supposed to basically get in order for you, because the thing about it is it can be a cause of problems, especially in problems in relationship. And so that law can make it difficult for relationships to be held or to stand together, because that law becomes jealous over the person. I know an individual that they went to a ceremony and they made a promise. Freda showed up and they were guided by the other people who brought them to that ceremony to go ahead and say yes to Freda asking them for marriage. He said yes. He didn't get the marriage for various reasons, neither here nor there. But those next 2 years after that, basically it was loss after loss after loss and problem after problem after problem, mainly all caused by Freda, who was saying that basically, you made a promise to marry me. And in relationships, it was just awful, left to right, left to right, left to right, meaning back and forth every single time. However, that person really suffered all kinds of other issues, financial, and all kinds of other sufferings, car accidents. Uh, it was just a hot mess.com. Car accidents, it was just no. But it was all because they came to a ceremony here at some point while they were going through all these sufferings. And Freda showed up here, and Freda was like, basically, you promised me to marry me. Now, mind you, they made that promise to marry Freda somewhere else, in some other temple. We don't know those people anything. And Freda was like, you promised to marry me, and I'm going to keep on messing you up until the promise is fulfilled. The person got upset. And they got upset at Freda because they were like, well, I didn't know what I was doing, blah, 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 etc. And Freda was like, pfft. Which means basically, I don't care about what you're saying now. The agreement stands, and I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing until you fulfill the agreement. So then Freda made certain movement that says, like, basically, if you keep on keeping on, you ain't gonna keep keeping on. Which basically means if you keep on getting an attitude with Freda, you know, you're gonna get yourself hurt even worse. That's exactly what happened. They left that same day, right? A brand new car they were driving became a matchbox car. That was the accident that was that bad. When they finally recovered from that, they came back. They made the apology to Freda. And then, of course, we got their marriage set up and put together. But that's the thing that can happen with these marriages. In old places and many other places, people would often, who didn't really want to get initiated, but they needed to get initiated for whatever reason, they would often make promises or do marriages instead. The reason for this is because the obligations in a marriage are easier to take care of than the obligations of an initiate. They're easier because they're your personal obligations to just go and handle. The obligations of an initiate include making sure you go to take care of the temple, take care of what you have to take care of on various other levels, taking care of your own altar, etc., etc., etc. An initiate actually has a lot more to do. However, there are many initiates who are also married to Lwa for various reasons. Like I said to you, sometimes you need that force or you need that style of connection to that force. That force needs to be with you. So many initiates are also married to Lwa because they're also married to Lwa to fill in those spaces that need to be filled. So in the olden times when people didn't want to get initiated, especially amongst people who were more rich or had more money, and so they didn't want to be associated with a temple or practicing voodoo, they would get married to various Lwa in exchange to get them out of the need to be initiated. Because taking care of a marriage is 2 or 3 days. Let's say if you were married to a number of Lwa, 2 or 3 Lwa, you may have to do that over the 2 or 3 or 4 days in a month versus everything you would have to take care of on a normal basis as an initiate. This would allow them to have things that they needed in a life that works without necessarily making that commitment. And that used to happen quite often on the island. So there is that as well. So these are the various reasons. Now, if you went to go to ask a Lwa to marry you, then it's the same thing. The Lwa, just like the Lwa has to wait for you to say yes or no, You have to wait for the Lwa to say yes or no. And you could ask the Lwa to marry you via a number of different rituals, or via actually speaking to a Lwa that's in someone's head that's possessing someone. And then you could ask a Lwa, hey, to marry you, or if it would like to marry you, or if it would agree to marry you, right? And many people do this because they need that force, or that the power of that spirit, in particular, because every spirit has a force that comes naturally with them. Just like when you go somewhere and when you turn up, you have a certain vibe and a certain energy that says, hey, that's you, that's your energy, that's your vibe, right? There's a certain force that comes with each spirit. Just like, give you an example, Papa Ogu comes in with that force of strength, protection, and war, and battle, and confidence, and courage, right? So when they need that, they may ask the Lwa to get married to the Lwa. And the Lwa gets to decide yes or no, I'm going to marry you, I'm not going to marry you, I'm with this, I'm not with it. So this is another way that people can end up married with the Lwa. I'm trying to think of everything. When you married that Lwa, once the marriage is done and you're going to have your compromiso, you're going to have your agreement, your obligation, right? On that day that you have your obligation to the Lwa, you're most welcome, Otto. On that day you have your obligation to the Lwa, you can't sleep with no human being. You have to sleep in a bed by yourself, or you have to sleep in a mattress by yourself, or on the ground by yourself. And this is something that amongst people from other backgrounds that are not from the culture, sometimes can be difficult to explain, especially if your spouse doesn't understand things. It's very important, however, that you don't desecrate the night that you're with the Lwa, because if you do, the Lwa is going to punish you and the spouse, and usually it's not going to be worth it. Not for you or that other person that you desecrated the night that you're supposed to be with the Lwa. And that day and that night, up until what normal time you would get up the following day, okay, is for that Lwa. Because that Lwa is going to come to you. It could come in your dream. It could come while you sleep. It can work on you. It can do anything it needs to do for you. It could set things up for you in a positive way. And that's your night with the Lwa. When it comes to this night with the Lwa, this is something that gets agreed upon in the contract or the agreement that's done pre-marriage and in the marriage, right? So before the marriage, this is determined when it's going to happen. And during the marriage is when the agreement is formalized. Both of you sit there and say yes. You say yes, the Lwa say yes. Okay, you made that agreement. And then that gets put into the agreement and the contract as to what's going on. Right? So this is already preset. Right? Another thing a lot of people ask me is when you're marrying the Lwa, in most places where you're going to go to marry the Lwa, you're going to have to get your clothes, the Lwa's clothes, okay? Because both of you are going to have specific clothes, colors that you need to wear in a specific style, okay? Because various Lwa like various styles that you're going to wear. And in many places, you're going to get both of the clothes, you're going to get both sets of rings. And some places, they require anywhere from 2 to 4 sets of rings. Okay? So, depending on where you're at, it can be 2 to 4 sets of rings that you're going to need. You're going to need your rings, you're going to need the Lwa's rings, you're going to need the rings for the Hunganar Mambo that marries the Lwa to you. Okay, because those are given to those Lwa of that place. right? So in some, it can be anywhere from 2 to 4 sets of rings, or 2 to 4 rings. Let me say it, not sets. 2 to 4 rings that you're gonna have to give, and they're gonna do basically everything that has to be done, right, in a marriage. So it's gonna go like a lwa ceremony, but then you're gonna have the time where that lwa is gonna show up, and you're gonna marry that lwa in a marriage ceremony that's very similar to, pretty much the same as a Christian marriage ceremony. The difference is you're there with the lwa. The lwa is there with the person that's getting married. Those are the ones making the agreement. The lwa is possessed in its horse, and so the lwa takes possession of the horse and basically makes the agreement like that. And at that time, everybody's wearing the clothing of whoever they need to wear, however they need to wear it. Okay? Oh, many blessings, Kay. You're most welcome. Good to see you here. Welcome. So, these are all things that are going to be had during the ceremony, as well as a written agreement between you and that lwa that gets signed by everybody, by you, by the lwa, and by everybody else present. They're going to sign saying that they witnessed that ritual taking place. Then you have your obligation. You go ahead and you fulfill your obligation as is due. Now, a few other things, random, not random, but just like miscellaneous is a better way to put it. Miscellaneous things, okay? When you marry a lwa, sometimes for many people, if you marry certain lwa, you may need certain other lwa to balance those lwa out, so that the marriages happen in balance, so that the force of that other lwa, the lwa, let's say lwa A that you married, doesn't be too much that it puts you out of balance. And so you might need another force to even it out. So that happens. So it's not uncommon that when a person gets married to lwa, okay, they might have to marry more than one. However, that is not the case for everyone. Some individuals, they can marry one lwa and they don't need to marry a whole bunch of other lwa, because it's not going to put that out of balance for them. So that's number one. Number two, marrying the lwa is something that you have to do in person. I'm not sure yet. I can't say that for sure. No, I can't see that. Marrying the lwa is something you have to do in person. It's an in-person ritual. So it's something that wherever you're doing it, they can't just do it for you over the phone. Luckily, we have all these technologies today. Yes, gracias a la misericordia. We have all these beautiful technologies, and they're beautiful and they are wonderful. And there are many things we can do via technology. We can teach classes, you guys can watch lives, we can disseminate trainings. There could, Some things, my dear, must be done in person still. There's no way around it. So marriage to the lwa is one of those things. You cannot do those things over the phone, etc. It has to be done in person. Another thing people ask me is, how long does it take? A marriage to a lwa can take anywhere between 2 hours plus, right? If there's a full party that's being done alongside of it, it can take 5, it could take 4 or 5 hours, it could take 6 hours. Okay, if it's being done alongside of another ritual that's not a full party, okay, meaning in Hora Santa, Amani, etc., if it's being done with that instead, It may take a shorter amount of time. Another thing people ask me is if you have to marry multiple spirits. So let's say you're like, hey, I have to marry this spirit. And now you know you have to marry two other ones. So now you have to marry three. Can you marry them all in the same ceremony? Generally, that depends. That depends on the spirits. That depends on the spirits that you're marrying, the combination, the combo, who you're marrying. Some of them will accept it, some of them will not. Can you marry them back to back? Yes, you can. You can marry one today and then marry another one tomorrow. So you can do the ceremonies back to back, but you may not be able to combine them. You may have to do them separately depending on the spirits that are getting married. And again, that happens to have some regional differences depending on who's doing the ceremony for you. I'm trying to think what else. So, I think that pretty much covers and gives you a good foundation and a good idea as far as how the marriage to the Lwa works. If you guys have questions, feel free to comment here in the comments as I go ahead and I'm going to wrap up. Is that if you have had any signs or indications or communications from the Lwa as far as needing to get married and you need help with that, or maybe you made an agreement somewhere else and you're no longer in that place and you need help to get married to the Lwa, we do that. I've done a number of marriages this year, and you can contact us at help@mysticalwork.com so that we can chat and communicate about it and have it taken care of. If you recognize that you might be having certain issues that I discussed in this live, right, which may be indicating you need marriage to the Lwa, but you're unsure, again, contact us at help@mysticalwork.com so we can check in to make sure that's the proper solution. Some of these things are like coughs and colds and the flu and the COVID. Is that some of these situations in your life have many similar symptoms, but it may be different illnesses. And if they have many different symptoms and similar illnesses, we got to get down to what is that really is the solution for you. Otherwise, it's a waste of your time. So if you recognize some of these things with you and you think like either it may be a Lwa, it may not be a Lwa, you can contact us at help@mysticalwork.com and we can go ahead and have a chat, whatever, so that we can find out what it really is in your situation, how to get it resolved for you, right? And basically that is what I had to say. Here's 2 questions. Okay, so one question is, does the marriage to the Lwa affect the marriage to your partner? Yes and no. So one thing that you may have missed that I said is that if you need a marriage to a Lwa, but you don't have it, the Lwa can affect your marriage to your partner and create issues, problems, and disgust to occur in your partnership because the Lwa is irritated and mad and jealous and they want the marriage. Right? If you're married to the Lwa, however, and then you get a partner, it can cause problems in your partnership if you put that person before the Lwa, or if the Lwa doesn't care for that person. So that's 2 things. The Lwa doesn't like that person, or you put that person before the Lwa, or you disrespect the agreements that you made with that Lwa, and you don't follow through with your agreements. Now sometimes, good evening, bonsoir, Carlos. Now sometimes your Lwa, your partner can have an issue with the fact that you are married to a Lwa. And sometimes your partner can have an issue with the fact that you're married to the law. And sometimes your partner will create issues for you because you're married to the law and they're upset about it. And that needs to be handled because otherwise the law, basically like anything, it's going to have you do something to it, something it's going to do back to you. It's a one action equals reaction, okay? Action and reaction cause and effect, okay? So then that needs to be resolved. But those are various situations that can happen. So, yes, it can, but also if you have a good partnership where there's no issue between the law is fine with your partner and you're married to the law and your partner doesn't disrespect the law and doesn't care, they're like, hey, go do what you gotta do, then generally that's not going to cause any issue for you. However, if you need to marry a Lwa and you haven't, then he or she can cause issues for you because he's trying to get you to marry him or her. And then I have another question is, can your human spouse be there at your basically at your Mariaj Lwa, at your marriage ceremony, if if they have no problem with the Lwa and the Lwa has no problem with them? Yes. Generally, basically, the Lwa is only going to have a problem with your human spouse is if your human spouse tries to get in their way. Okay? But if that's all good, right? Yes, your spouse can be there. Oftentimes, spouses are there when we do these ceremonies because they want to be there to support. And so that's totally okay. And that's totally fine. And sometimes the reason why the person needs to marry the Lwa is so that they can have stability in that partnership or in relationships, period. That's what I'm saying to you in the sense that some people, the Lwa, come to you and ask you for marriage because by doing so, it's able to help you in a certain way. So it's able to give you that stability or strength in a relationship that you're not able to have without that Lwa's assistance and without that Lwa's energy and that force present. So very often, in those cases especially, it can be helpful for the Lwa, for your human spouse to be there at your Lwa marriage because they can be there as well to receive messages from the Lwa or from any of the other Lwa that might show up that have to do with getting your marriage or your relationship healthy. Okay? And what maybe they might have advice or things to tell your spouse to do or not do in order to keep and make a healthy relationship with you. Right? That's the last thing is that when we do marriage to the Lwa, it's not uncommon that other Lwa show up because it's a marriage. So sometimes other Lwa show up, and that's also not uncommon. Other Lwa will show up and they're just celebrating, they're giving their blessings to the marriage, they're giving their congratulations, they're celebrating with their fellow Lwa. They might be giving their blessings. Another thing to notate in marriages to the Lwa is the Lwa can be they're kind of funny, okay? In the sense that if you're marrying a Lwa, the Lwa comes in there to marry you, don't expect that Lwa to be there all day. A lot of times the Lwa comes for the marriage, they get married, they stay for a little minute and then they go. And a lot of times it's sometimes the other Lwa that end up get to enjoy and, really live up the party more so than the Lwa who's getting married even sometimes. And that's simple. I mean, think about human marriages. It's kind of the same, isn't it? It's kind of the same where a lot of times the guests are getting to really disfrutar, really enjoy the whole event, even more so than the people getting married. So Lwa are different as well. So depending on the Lwa that you're marrying, some of them stay longer or shorter, you know, during that time in which they're getting married with you. So I hope that this has helped all of you guys and blessed all of you guys with more wisdom and knowledge and information today. Many blessings to all of you. As you may or may not be aware, on November 13th at 3 p.m., we have a ceremony to Papa Gede, as we do every year. There's a Facebook page and a page on my website to get tickets to that event. You can come in person or you can show up virtually, and both of those options are available. That's number one. I forget when the last day of our tickets are going to be. So if you did already get a ticket, be on the lookout. We're shortly going to be sending you out all the information as far as all that is concerned. Number three is like, follow, share, subscribe. Like, follow, share, subscribe. Like, follow, share, subscribe. Then thank you guys for all of those of you guys who do like, follow, share, and subscribe. You're most welcome, Nick. Thank you guys to all of you guys who do. And like I said earlier in this live, I'm thinking of doing a raffle coming up for all of you guys who do all that stuff for me. Like, follow, comment, share, subscribe. I appreciate all of you guys, and I kind of want to do a raffle. It's my thing. So, that. Lastly, if you'd like to make firstly, if you have made a donation, those of you who've made multiple donations, we really appreciate you. If you really enjoy these lives, you like me doing them, want me to keep doing them, and all right? You can feel free to make a donation like many other people have. We started doing donations because everybody kept on saying, like, Papa, I need to send you a donation. I want to send you a donation. I want to send you a donation. So we start that. So you can do that via Cash App, cash symbol Hector Salva, or PayPal help at mysticalwork.com. Many blessings, Amanda. Good to see you. I hope you guys enjoyed this live. Go ahead and keep the faith. Keep strong. Keep your head up. And many blessings until we see each other next time. Oh, and happy All Saints Day.